Hello guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Today I would be telling you about a single Bitcoin block. That is what is there in a single Bitcoin block. So before we get into complete blockchain, let's understand what is there in a single Bitcoin block so that our fundamentals are more clear. Before I delve into the details of a single Bitcoin block, let us do a quick recap about what we had done in the first video. That is, the first video was a simple explanation of how actually blockchain works, wherein there was 100 rupees in a room and three people were sitting, and there was a transaction that had happened between Harsha and Abhishek, and the balances were updated by all these three people. Right? All these three people had their respective registers and they were updating the balances in that. So in this way, we had eliminated any dependency on a third party, and these three people were actually peers and they had consensus over the 100 rupees even after a transaction had happened. So this was the basic concept which I wanted to tell you about blockchain. So before that, let's just remember that there were three people and there was a transaction happened such that we can use this same transaction details in understanding a single Bitcoin block. So first of all, why do we call it a blockchain? Because we have blocks of data, right? So till now we were actually dealing in registers, people sitting in a room and all. But in software terms, there are blocks of data, that is blocks of data wherein we can store particular data in a database, right? This is a block of data in a particular database. So these blocks of data are actually cryptographically linked to each other. That is, block 2 has the hash of the block 1. Hash is nothing but the 256 function which I had told earlier in my previous video, the SHA-256 video, in which SHA-256 function is used, in which data within block 1 is hashed and that particular hash is stored in the block 2. And SHA-256 function is again used on the block 2 and we get a hash 2, and the hash 2 is stored in the block 3. In this way, all these three blocks are actually cryptographically linked to each other. That is why this is called as block and chain. That is why it is called blockchain. So as I did a quick recap about what we had done in the first video, wherein we were having registers. In the software terms, these are actually called as nodes, right? So technically they are called as nodes, but they are most famously known as miners. I think you might have heard of this term miners because many of us actually thought of mining bitcoins, right? So these are nothing but nodes, nothing but registers, which I had explained in the first video. So what do nodes or miners have in software terms, right? So nodes and miners have huge amount of data space. That is the first point. And the second point is that they have huge amount of computing power. Why do they have the computing power? Is because they want to mine a block and they want to win the Bitcoin rewards. So that is the reason why miners are so famous in the world and everyone wants to become a miner. So we'll delve more deeply into this computing power concept later on in my further videos. But for now, just keep in mind that they have huge amounts of data space, that is database. Understand that they have multiple instances of database and they have huge amounts of computing power in very simple terms. Now let's think that this is a single block of data, or you can say this as a space in a database, right? In which transactions are being entered. Like if you remember, the first transaction was between Abhishek to Harsha for 10 rupees, right? For a glass of water. Abhishek wanted a glass of water and he gave Harsha 10 rupees for that glass of water. So that particular transaction is entered into this particular block, right? And later on, Harsha wanted something from Manish and he pays 20 rupees. And the same way, Manish wanted something from Abhishek, he pays 10 rupees. In this way, the transactions go on, right? So as I told you, this is a Bitcoin block, right? Every Bitcoin block has two constraints, right? In every blockchain, there are two constraints, whether it might be Bitcoin blockchain, whether it might be Ethereum blockchain or any blockchain. Generally, they have two constraints, that is the block size and the block time. So for Bitcoin blockchain, the block size is 1 MB. That is the amount of data that can be entered to a particular block is maximum of 1 MB, and the minimum is also 1 MB. Every block must contain 1 MB, right? And the next thing is the block time. That is the lifetime of a particular block. Not about the lifetime. You can say the time till which the data can be entered is actually 10 minutes. Post which this is cryptographically sealed and no more data can be entered into this particular block, right? That is called as block time. Now, how do we understand these two constraints, right? Now, let's say that, within 10 minutes, let's say within 10 minutes, within 5 minutes only, let's say there were so many transactions as it happens in the Bitcoin blockchain, wherein the particular block is filled within a minute. Now, let's say within 10 minutes, 1 MB of data is filled into this particular block. That is, in the 6th minute only, let's say there is a new transaction that happens between Harsha and Abhishek again. Let's say there is a transaction between Harsha and Abhishek in the 6th minute. So where does that transaction go, right? So that's a big question, right? Because 1 MB is filled and the block size is 1 MB, and for 10 minutes this block remains alive. We can't create a new block. So where does the 6th transaction go? So the 6th transaction actually sits in a memory pool, right? It's a technical concept. There is a memory pool wherein this particular transaction sits, and it waits for 10 minutes to be completed, so that this block is cryptographically sealed and a new block comes into the picture, right? When the new block comes into the picture, that particular 6th transaction, or the transaction that had happened in the 6th minute, that particular transaction is sent into the second block, right? The new block which has been created after this block has been cryptographically sealed, right? Now there is another chance. Let's say that 10 minutes is over, but the block is not filled. Let's say there were no transactions and the block, only 0.5 MB of the block has been filled and the 0.5 MB is still left. Let's say there were no transactions. So in this case, what happens? In this case, what happens is that remaining particular space is taken as a vacant space and this particular block is sealed. So whatever transaction that happens in the 11th minute, that 11th minute transaction won't be put into this particular block. So after the 10th minute, this particular block is sealed and a new block is created, right? So these two are the constraints, and always look out for these two parameters in any blockchain, right? So these two parameters are common in many of the blockchain and they can be referred to in different ways, right? And in the same way, if you look at Ethereum, right? Ethereum is also a very famous blockchain. So the block time in this is roughly 14 seconds and the block size is roughly 2 KB. Actually, there is a very different concept in which the Ethereum blockchain works. But these two principles are the same, but the way they actually use it is in a different way. Block size is 2 KB, but it is actually denoted by gas limit, which is set by the miners. It's a very different concept. Let it be there for a different day. So Ethereum has a block time of 14 seconds and the block size of 2 KB. So this is what I wanted to tell about, a single block in any blockchain. This is how any blockchain works. So guys, if you are actually liking my videos, you can actually share my video, as I'm trying to put out this content in a very simple way so that everyone can understand. I guess if you look out in the internet, you won't get explanation in such condensed way, right? If you like it, you can actually share it with your friends. And also I have a YouTube channel, guys, so you can get that particular link in my bio. It's a very new channel. I haven't done much over there, but you can get a varied content later on. As we proceed, like in few months, I will be coming up with various content over there. But if you're really liking my content and if you're having if you're getting a good knowledge, then please share my video. Thank you very much, guys.